Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be another for the series that I'm making on homemade gift ideas. And so today I'm here to show you how to make a glasses case for sunglasses or reading glasses. Here's one that I've made earlier. It's more tailored toward fashion sunglasses because it's a bit wider. But the one I'm going to show you how to make today will be much the same pattern except just a little narrower to suit reading glasses. So I've just put a press stud on this one. It would be nice if I'd had a lighter colour, but black is all I had on hand and it's not very obvious once it's closed. I've got a regular sized pair of sunglasses here which I'll show you how it fits. There's a little bit of wriggle room, so they could have been a little bit larger, a bit more statement glasses perhaps, and yeah, you just button it up. And that can be stored safely on a shelf to keep off the dust, or perhaps in a handbag, and it'll keep your glasses safe and protected. To make this case, the first step you will need to do is to make this front panel. Now it's a very simple shape, but the trick is to get it the correct size. So you'll need to do a little bit of thinking about the size of yarn that you're using and the size of sunglasses or spectacles or reading glasses that you are expecting to put in the case. I have a little ruler here to show you how large mine is. It is just shy of 10 centimeters across, and I'm going to guesstimate that it has another 3 centimeters on this side, so let's say it's about 18 centimeters long. My ruler is a bit too short, sorry for that. And in terms of numbers of stitches, I did 30 stitches this way, and I did 68 rows that way. I'm going to make the next one a little bit smaller. The thread size is roughly the same as what I used to make this one. And so I'm going to probably do 25 across, and I will probably stop at around 60 rows. On the information paper of most yarns, you'll see a little diagram like this, which tells you what kind of size you would end up with if you used this size of hook. Here we have 1.5 mil, and so how many stitches you would need and how many rows you would need. So that will give you an idea of what kind of thickness of yarn you're working with and how you will have to adjust this pattern. For example, I used a 2 mil crochet hook with this yarn, and I ended up getting just shy of 10 centimeters using only 30 stitches, and I would say that is because I've used the slightly larger hook. If you were using a much thicker yarn, you would have to significantly lower your stitch count. A great idea would be to start out by making a bit of a sample and seeing how many stitches end up with what kind of measurements, and then you can adjust accordingly before you make the whole project. As I said, for this case I am using a different yarn, but it is around the same thickness as the one I used here. Okay, so I'm going to put this one to the side and let's get started. I'm using this blue yarn. It's just cotton. I do prefer to work with cotton for these projects because they are a bit less fluffy. So I'm crossing it over, picking up the thread, and then that way as I pull it, it tightens. I'll put my crochet hook through, tighten it a little further, and now I'm going to count 25 loops. So I will put my hook underneath the thread, holding it firmly here with my thumb and forefinger of my left hand, and I'll pull the thread through the loop that I've just made. So that is one chain. So I'm going to count and do 25. So that's 2, 3, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, so I have made a length of 25 chains. Once you've done 25 chain stitches, that's the length that you want to do it, but you just need to add one more chain stitch at the end and so that when you turn around you don't lose a stitch. So if I hadn't have done that, my 25th chain would still be on my hook, and so I can't use it, so I just need to add one extra. So when I go to put stitches into the chains, then I still have 25 stitches. So I've just switched to a much larger hook and larger yarn just so that you can see this bit more clearly. So I've reached the end of my chain. Now I'm going to put my crochet hook into the second chain here. I will wrap my hook under the thread and bring it through, just putting it through one loop, not the one on my hook yet. Then I will collect the yarn again, and now this time I will pull that bit of yarn through both my loops, and that is what I call a single crochet. It does depend upon your country what the terminology is. It changes a little bit, but yes, here in Australia we call it a single crochet, and so that's the terminology I'll be using for the rest of this video. And so I will just continue doing single crochets all the way along the chain. So collecting my yarn, pulling it through one, collecting my yarn again, pulling it through two, and that's the pattern. It's not too hard once you can see clearly. Once you get to the end of the row, just make sure you don't forget to collect this last stitch as well. And that's my last single crochet. Now in order to turn around, I will just do one slip stitch, like so. Turn it around, and then as I come back, I will be putting my hook into the top of each single crochet that I've just made, and making another single crochet. So this is the only stitch we're using really, single crochets. And so, I've only collected one. It should look like that on the top, where you've got two threads going over your hook. And then we just keep doing this same pattern of single crochet on single crochet, and then doing one slipped stitch to turn. That is the pattern that we will continue all the way along until we have done 70 rows, or whichever is the correct amount of rows for your thickness of yarn. So I've just done 70 rows, and I've just done the last single crochet on the end of the row, and as I do the slip stitch, instead of just looping it like this, I'm going to trim the end and pull it all the way through. Give it a little pull to keep it tight. And that is the front panel. Now the next step is to make something very similar to this. You will start the same way, and then we will do another 70 rows. So essentially it's the same, but instead of finishing it off at the corner, we will then keep going, add a few additional rows and shape the top. So go ahead and start another one. I've just done 70 rows, so that brings me to the same size piece as I already have. But instead of ending it off there, I'm going to continue and do another 10 rows, which will start to create the flap that goes over the top. I've added an extra 10 rows now, and so that brings it to a total of 80. And so now I'm going to work on bringing it in at the sides to create a more of a rounded shape. So to do that, I'll just do my usual turnaround slip stitch, and then Instead of putting my hook into this first single crochet, I'm going to put it into the second one, and then continue all the way, almost all the way to the end of the row, and I'll stop short just before I get to the last stitch. There we go, and I've just missed doing this one, and then I will do my usual slip stitch to turn around. So I'm going to do that for a total of 5 rows. And now here I am on my 6th row. I'm going to again put my hook into the second single crochet, and I'm going to do 5 single crochets. Then I'm going to do 3 chain stitches. 1, 2, 3, and I will skip 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and put my hook into the 4th, this one, and do a single crochet. Then I will do 4 more single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a slip stitch to turn. And again, continuing the pattern of bringing it inwards, I'm going to put my hook into the second single crochet of this row and do a single crochet onto it, and I will just continue along, and even when I get to the chain stitches, I will just keep doing a regular single crochet. Instead of being fussy about where to put my hook, I'm just going to put it into this large gap, which will become our buttonhole. So 1, 2, 3. I'll keep going, putting my hook back into single crochets again. Still continuing the pattern of putting my hook into the second single crochet to start. So I've now brought it into just 8 stitches across. I'm going to do one more row to make it 6, and then I'll end it there. I'll just finish it off by doing a slip stitch, trimming the end, and pulling it all the way through like that, and just giving a little pull to tighten. And there we have the back and flap. I have the 2 layers sitting here together now. That's the flap we just finished. And now I'm going to start at the bottom corner where I've tied the 2 starting threads together. And I'm going to be doing this in blue, but to start with I'll show you how to do it using a white thread, which I'll later undo, just so that you can see a bit more clearly what I'm doing. Instead of going for this smaller hole here where the chain is that we first started with, I'm going to go and put my hook through the first layer of single crochets, just so that the join is a little bit stronger and less likely to stretch out of shape. Same for the back layer as well. So now that I've got my hook through those 2, I'll pull it through. And then I will just tie a knot. And I can start crocheting. Now I will just do a series of, what are these? single crochets all the way along. And as you can see, I'm still just putting my hook into the first row of single crochets. And I will do that all the way around. Now as I go around the corner, I'm going to put an extra 2 stitches into this one, just to help ease it around the corner. Now it's a little bit less straightforward where to put your hook when you're working down the side, but as you can see, there's a sort of pattern of knots, you might say, that you can line up like so, and then I'll be just putting my hook into the nearest little hole. And there you can see it has quite a neat and pleasing result, and that's how it looks on the reverse. So the idea is to go all the way around the edge, and then once you run out of the front piece, you just keep going, following the edge of the flap, and then all the way around, picking up the front piece again on your way back down until you reach the point where you started, and then you will simply tie it off there. I've made it all the way around the case and finished it off at the end. So now that I've done that, I will take my decorative thread and I'm going to show you how to do a decorative stitch to make it nice and pretty. So I'm just going to, it doesn't really matter where you start, but I'm going to start roughly where I left off, and I'm going to put my hook into the top of a single crochet, pull my white thread through, and then just tie it. You can do this in the same colour or a contrasting colour as I am. It doesn't really matter, depending on your preference. I'm going to start out by doing 5 single crochets in this first single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to do a slip stitch into this next single crochet and another slip stitch into the next single crochet, and then we repeat the pattern. 5 single crochets into 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 slip stitch into the next single crochet, another slip stitch into the next single crochet, and so on all the way until we reach back at the point where we started. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so I'm back where I've started, and I've just done 2 slip stitches, and I'm just going to finish off by placing my hook into the original knot that I made. And pull it all the way through. I'll just tie these 2 ends together just to ensure that nothing's going to come unraveled. That's probably a bit tight, but there we go. And then I'm just going to tuck these ends into the slip stitches. Oh, that's a bit of a thick one. There we go. And then I'll just trim it there. Okay. And so there we have it. It is a bit wrinkly and not sitting very flat right now, but that's okay because I will just give it a bit of an iron to get this to sit more compactly. And then after that, all I need to do is sew a button on.